Good morning. Ah, awesome. Hey, good morning, everyone. You brought the sun. It's been raining for days here, and I finally got some sun here, and this is my first Zoom in, many more to come. And before I jump in here, what I'd like to do, because technology is such an amazing thing, it's meant to allow us to connect, right? And it's meant to allow us to feel closer. And since we can't feel closer right now, and I can't see you all, I would love it if you could just for a moment turn on your videos so that I know who I'm talking to. If you're comfortable, even in your pajamas, if you could turn your videos on for a second, maybe Constance will move it to a gallery view. We can all see each other. Wow. Oh, there's my mom. Hi, Mom. Oh, cool.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. You see, this is the way that, is that Jeff? Yeah, so he's in and out of a background, I think. So this is new for us, right? And I think it's so important before we do some sort of production that we allow ourselves to see each other, to feel connected, to feel like we're in a community. Wow, there's familiar faces, there's faces I don't know. Hi, wow. If you scroll over, there's even more faces. Oh my gosh, awesome. Yeah, so just take a moment to see everyone, to just bask in the fact that we have 100 people on this line.
Excellent.
All right, so now that I've seen you all, you can turn your cams off so that the bandwidth works here. It's good to see you, know who I'm talking to. Let me change back to my view. Awesome. So, and go ahead and mute your line if you didn't, just so there's no background noise. So yeah, so I'm coming to you from my living room in Seattle, and you know, as all of you know, I was hoping to be there this weekend with all of you, and technology has allowed me to come in this format, which the irony of this is that for years I've been saying that I wanted to teach online and that I wanted to reach a greater audience through technology. I just didn't think it was going to happen so soon, so quickly. So I want to just thank Constance and Sally and Jeff and Andy and Zoe, all of you for making this service possible. Also Kev, thank you for the beautiful music. I know he's been working on an album in this social distancing time. And yeah, it's amazing that we have this platform right now to use. And, you know, at this time in the world, I'm finding that I am longing to look to my leaders, to new thought leaders, to icons, to heroes during times of crisis for direction and reflection, for some sort of meaning or rationale, and for absolutely for inspiration. And I, you know, as you all know, I just moved here. And so this is also a very interesting time to move to a new space, to be into the unknown in my life in so many areas, and then have this all happen all at once. And so admittedly, it has pushed me from into, you know, my spiritual practice in a deeper way, but also I'm navigating this dance between the human and the divine. And I'm sure you all can relate. And so during a time such as this, where none of us have probably experienced anything quite to this magnitude in our lifetime, I'm coming to still know and to still realize that as a spiritual teacher and as a leader, this teaching still absolutely applies. Ernest Holmes said that there is a spiritual truth back of everything. And, you know, even in the 11th hour, when we are in the 11th hour right now, it is a time where we steep ourselves in what we know even more so than ever before. And even with the news media and the news pundits and the conditions of the world, the panic and the hysteria that I know many of us have been feeling, or the anxiety that some of us have, all of those external sources would have us believe otherwise, that we must be in a constant state of survival. And it's very normal and very primal for us to be in that survival state when we're living in the unknown. That somehow spirituality and spiritual people are fooling ourselves with wishful thinking because this virus is right on our doorstep. But I want to bring it back to principle, because I know that that's what is absolutely true. Because Ernest Holmes said, to desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove to ourselves that we do not know the truth. He continues to say, when things look the worst, that is the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to the operation of truth. Disease is a fact, but it's not a truth. He says it is an experience, but it is not a spiritual reality. We must transcend the appearance, even though we admit it as a fact. We must try and sense and see that always back of the appearance, perfection is. And of course, we continue to steep ourselves in ways to keep ourselves healthy, and we have prudence and the caution. But he says out of any chaos, we can produce harmony. And good never compromises with its opposite. When we take away the belief in evil or separation, the belief that the outward appearance is the same as the inner reality, then the separation flees. He says we must continually remind ourselves of the power of the word and our ability to use it. And what this says to me is that this is the work. And our word is so powerful. And this teaching is here to aid us. And it's here to show us that we are spiritual warriors. And so I was thinking back on, times where our New Thought folks might have experienced this type of challenge, during the bubonic plague and different epidemics that we've experienced. And I heard a story recently that I thought was really fascinating from one of our great New Thought theologians who was born, I believe, Emmett Fox. He was born in the late 1800s. And he was born in Ireland, and he knew Thomas Troward, who's one of the great metaphysicians of our time. And he had opened a center in New York City, and he, for some reason, had to go back to Ireland because his visa had expired, and they sent him back to Ireland for 3 months. And during this time, he was terrified that his center, his church would be closed, that people would stop giving money, that everything would fall apart. And to his surprise, people, when he came back after 3 months of a sabbatical, people actually gave more money, and his attendance for the next year doubled. And so instead of going back to the old way that he used to do things, every year he would leave back to Ireland for 3 months and come back renewed and refreshed. And I say this because when we get to the end of this, and this will end, normalcy might look a little different for us. And there's a possibility that we might have a new way of being, we might be operating from a new narrative, and that might be the new normalcy. Abraham Lincoln said, "The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew." And so what I want to share today of inspiration are some things that I think it's really important for us to remember at this time, to consider, to contemplate, and to remember as we continue this journey, this spiritual evolution into unknown territory. And the first thing I want to share, and this has helped me so much, is to be in the moment that you are in, to be present absolutely in the moment that you are in. Futurizing how long we're all going to be at home or how long this is going to take is only going to make us crazy. But you can futurize, as we know within this teaching, we are co-creating all the time with this power and this presence that is absolutely working in our lives. And so if you want to futurize, how about futurizing the life that you want to be living and are living as if you were already living it? When all of this, is over, what do you want life to look like for you? And so we can return to those moments of just living in the moment right now and breathing that in and letting that be. A woman by the name of, let me see her, Charlotte Joko Beck said, "The secret of life that we're all looking for is just this, to develop through sitting and daily life, practice the power and courage to return to that which we have spent a lifetime hiding from, to rest in the bodily experience of the present moment, even if it is a feeling of being humiliated, of failing, of abandonment, or of unfairness." And so that is one of the tools that has helped me remain calm and at peace in all of this unknown, is to be present, is to bring myself back to the present. The next thing that we can remember, as Kev actually addressed earlier, is to find our creativity. This is a time where we can absolutely tap into this creativeness of our lives, reframing perhaps the narrative of your life. It is a reset, you could say, a moment of global breath, of a pause, of reset. And it's this total recognition of our oneness, what's happening right now. If you notice, different systems and things are falling away, and it's forcing us to connect and be with one another in ways that we hadn't before. I saw a post on Facebook recently that cracked me up, of a girlfriend of mine who said, "I've talked to more friends in the last week than I probably have in 2 years." You see, because we're all craving connection. We're all craving to be close. And so this is a time for us to cooperate together, and a moment for reset, perhaps, in your life. When we think of survival of the fittest, sometimes we think that the one who dominates is the strongest. But actually, I think it might be how we learn to adapt. So we are adaptable creatures. If you noticed about yourself, typically if you're confined into a space, you start to learn ways of navigating through your day. And some of it's uncomfortable and maybe filled with anxiety and other emotions, but we learn to adapt to the environment that we're in. So back to the bubonic plague time. During quarantine in the 17th century, the early 17th century, in 1606, Shakespeare actually was forced, to close down all of the theaters. He was an actor performing, and because they all had to be quarantined, he of course started to write. And he spent his time writing King Lear, he wrote Macbeth, and he wrote Antony and Cleopatra, actually before the year was even over. Another famous icon that we know, in 1665, Isaac Newton found himself in quarantine because of the bubonic plague as well. So he returned to his family home 60 miles outside of London, and this young mathematician produced some of his best work actually during that year. He wrote papers that would become early calculus, and he developed his theories on optics while he was playing with prisms in his bedroom. And not only that, those are the moments that this idea, his theories on gravity started germinating. And so we can use this time for creativity to explore our dreams, what we want to create, what do we want life to be about as we, continue on as this ends. The next thing that I want to remind us is, to create some structure in the unknown. As humans, we need structure. I think a lot of us want safety. We want to feel that we have some control, which hence all of the toilet paper hoarding, right? And so because there hasn't been this forward movement, we're all kind of in this limbo space of, okay, what's going to happen? The tendency in the psyche, I think, is, well, but we should be moving forward. It's like this phenomenon, like, well, but I know that something's not quite right. I should be moving forward. And so creating some structure throughout your day could potentially help ease, any sense of discomfort. So when we're thrown this curveball with all this unexpected change, um, you know, if we don't have some sense of that control, then we tend to spin out, we tend to become more reactive, we tend to get anxious. And then the reptilian brain starts to kick in, right? Where our primitive mind knows that something's not right, but it's something that we can't see. And so I was reading this article, and many of you might have seen it. It was this article on grief that went viral on the internet. And I wanted to share a bit from it because it actually helped me reframe my entire experience about my emotions and what I'm feeling. And many people, you'll notice, are going around asking, well, are you feeling this way? Because I am too. Or are you feeling this way? Because there's this need to find meaning in all of this. And so I was reading this article, and David Kessler, who's a very well-known author and also studied with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who also is an incredible author and works with hospice and loss and death and dying. He wrote about how the world has changed, and as humans, we know that this is temporary, but it doesn't feel like that. He says things will be different after this, and this loss of normalcy and connection, the economic loss, is actually creating a collective mass grief that we are not used to experiencing. And perhaps 9/11 was the last time we touched on this. And so he calls it anticipatory grief. The feeling you get when you're unsure of the unknown, and usually it comes with this feeling of death or something is going to happen. And so we're longing for a sense of safety and control. So I want to take you through this because I found this really interesting. If you think about the steps of grief, the first step is denial. And I know early on I was saying, oh, this won't affect me. So the denial is, well, the virus won't affect me. I'm good, and I thought, oh, this is being made bigger than it needs to be. And then I got to a stage of anger, which is another stage of grief. You're making me stay home and you're taking away all of my activities? Really? Like, I have to stay home? And so there was a sense of irritation and anger. And then there's the bargaining, which is another stage of grief of, okay, so if I social distance for 2 weeks and I stay home, then can I come out and play with all my friends? If I stay home and do everything I'm told, then can I go back out? And then of course there is sadness in the stages of grief, which is this hopelessness of, I don't know when this is ever going to end. And I want to feel connected, and I feel alone, and I feel lonely. And it's been a very real thing for many people. And then finally, there's a stage of acceptance where we come to recognize this is happening. This is what is in this moment. And I get to figure out, not I have to, but I get to figure out how I'm going to frame this and how I'm going to proceed. And he contends that there's one more step. And this is the step I find also where our power lies, other than acceptance, is in the acceptance stage, we say, oh, I can wash my hands and I can keep a safe distance and I can learn how to be in the virtual world and learn how to work from home. And then the sixth stage is finding meaning. We seek to find meaning in what is happening. And in time, if we stick with it and we stay with our practice, that meaning will come. So it's important right now for us to stay balanced in our thoughts, and naming those emotions and those feelings out loud, because there is power in doing that. I've been reading a book called The Places That Scare You. It's by a Buddhist nun. Her name is Pema Chodron. And she writes amazing work. And she also wrote a book called When Things Fall Apart. And as I was reading this, she was talking about the idea and the concept of taking a seat. Taking a seat. She says that when we're taking a seat, it's like the literal taking a seat to meditate, to be present, to go within, to be still as we know it. And it's also a way in which we allow ourselves to rise in consciousness, to stay centered and aligned when we take a seat. And so in spiritual awakening, she says that when we're trying to find our grounding, and as we're practicing taking a seat, when we're having this compassionate inquiry into what we're feeling, of naming those emotions and those feelings, she says that all of our patterns and our neuroses start to surface. And it's just something that we can't help as humans. And so she gives 4 methods that she says Buddhist monks actually teach. And I'm not going to give them all to you now, but I will give you the one that I think is really important for right now, which is seeing obstacles as teachers. And so I want you to just close your eyes for a moment, and I'm going to read you a little bit from the book, The Places That Scare You, that she speaks about challenges being our teachers. The third instruction is seeing difficulties as teachers. If there is no teacher around to give us direct personal guidance on how to stop causing harm, never fear. Life itself will provide opportunities for learning how to hold our seat. Without the inconsiderate neighbor, where will we find the chance to practice patience? Without the office bully, how could we ever get the chance to know the energy of anger so intimately that it loses its destructive power? The teacher is always with us. The teacher is always showing us precisely where we're at, encouraging us not to speak and act in the same old neurotic ways, encouraging us also not to repress or to dissociate, encouraging us not to sow seeds of suffering. So with this person or circumstance or situation that is scaring us or insulting us, do we retaliate as we have 100,000 times before, or do we start to get smart and finally hold our seat? Right at the point when we are about to blow our top or withdraw into oblivion, we can remember this. We are warriors in training, being taught how to sit with edginess and discomfort. We are being challenged to remain and to relax right where we are. I found that so moving because it helps shift and recreate the narrative around what this time is really about. Of, can I just take a seat? Can I take my seat? You could say to yourself, I'm taking a seat now. I'm taking a seat to go within and to come up to a higher place so that I might see my life and the world in a very different way. The next thing I want to share is the importance of protecting our attention. Watching our mental activity. At the beginning of all of this, I recall getting so many phone calls weeks ago because in Seattle, we were experiencing a lot of this probably a month ago at the end of February. So I've been home a really long time. And I just recall thinking to myself, where I'm putting my attention right now and having the news on constantly is not supporting my consciousness. It's not supporting my mood. It's good to be informed, and yet paying attention to my mental chatter and where my focus is so key in not having me suffer. And so it's one of the best things I believe that we can do for our health. And the evidence is we are connected through spiritual understanding. We're connected through our physiological connections, like what we need, like our resources, our food, and our water. And so I made this declaration to stop counting the incidents and the cases, to stop focusing on how many people are experiencing this, and focusing on transformational healing, light, and what I want to see be so, that is the work. And so counting our blessings, counting the wins. What are your wins for the day? It absolutely matters because it's something that is absolutely more purposeful and more productive. The next thing is to let go of our resistance. So I've been in a lot of resistance to what is, in the sense of, okay, can this be over now? Can we just go back to life, as it was? And maybe not. Maybe we don't go back to life as it was. We stop resisting and fighting what is, and ask ourselves, am I fighting this experience right now? Because when we fight, that personal energy is spent on all of that. And so much personal energy is then taken from us because we're resisting. We're resisting what is. And we can change our relationship to resistance. And so that allows us then to bring ourselves back into envisioning something beyond our current circumstances into a new reality, and then calling that reality forth into our lives, focusing on the light and the healing and the wisdom and the support and the abundance of resources that we have, and then making a new choice in my day, that I'm going to shift. I'm going to shift my attention, and I'm going to stop fighting what is, and I'm going to just surrender into the moment. And the last thing I want us to remember is to keep our hearts open, to open our hearts even more, to embrace what is happening and to make something of it, to go forward with courage and strength and faith, and to know that this will end. I'd like to say that there's something magnificent on the other side of this, and we don't know what it is yet. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. And so even the 100 of us on this call and those who might be watching later, we have the power in this moment to raise our consciousness, to raise our vibration, to come back to our center, to absolutely take a seat. To take a seat and to remember. We can participate in reverse paranoia and practice more self-care and more kindness, more care for our human family, calm and centered in our own beingness, and focusing ultimately on what we want to create. Something wonderful is coming out of this. And I believe that we are resilient. I know I'm resilient. We are resilient. And we can use this time. So with that, I want to close with a little meme that I got here from social media. So on my Instagram account, I follow somebody by the name of Mark Groves, and he wrote, he has a hashtag called Create the Love. He's an amazing writer and speaker. And he says this about love, and I think it's a really beautiful thing for us to hold as we end our time today. He says, stop apologizing for being sensitive, emotional, or passionate. Stop limiting how you love for fear you'll scare away a future partner. Humans are emotional. We love, we're fierce. You are the thunderstorms, the earthquakes, and the tsunamis. You are the natural disasters, but you're also the sunset, sunrise, calm of the ocean, and the fresh mountain air. You are the natural wonders of this world too. Your passion is what makes you strong. It's what makes you love deeply. Fight for the people when they need you. Build communities, support movements, and enact change in this world. Love is your superpower. It's all of ours. And so with that, let us go within now for a prayer. So taking a deep breath in. We connect to that holy breath that is breathing us in this very moment. Wherever you are, taking a moment to take a seat, to step back, to take a pause, to remember why we are here, which is to connect and to express the goodness of life, of this great intelligence, of the love, the greatest love that there ever was or ever will be, which is this power and presence of life that is breathing each and every one of us right now. We get to tap into that wisdom right now, that love, that beauty, that joy, that certainty that we can never, ever, ever be separate from it, for it is the only activity and thing happening in our lives right here and right now. It is the thing itself. You can call it God or Allah or Yahweh or the presence or the divine intelligence that is orchestrating everything that is happening in this universe. We are aspects, we are expressions of, we are that. And so as I know this to be the truth, I know that we can never be separate from it. That any fears or doubts or feelings of separation or discord absolutely is not the truth for us, for we are connected to it always. We can access it from the very breath that we breathe. And so as we continue to turn within, letting go of our resistance to what is in this moment, we let ourselves be present. We release any self-judgment. We release any worries. We release any fears, any anxiety that we might have about the future or what is happening in this moment. And we come back to the truth with a capital T, that there is something far greater unfolding and happening in each one of our lives, and it is magnificent and perfect and whole. And so for anyone that might be experiencing any challenge whatsoever, any personal challenge, any relationship or economic or health challenge, we absolutely know divine right action is taking place right here and now, that there is a transformation of healing that's happening on this planet right before our eyes. And so we claim it and we know that to be true. We know that there is an abundance of resources for all of our doctors and our medical workers and all of those that are going to work every single day, giving their gifts and being in service. And I say a prayer for this month's nonprofit partner, which is Family Paths. And their goal is to strengthen family relationships by providing mental health and supporting services with respect and integrity, compassion, and hope. I give thanks for our Mother Earth right now, for I know that nature is the great teacher and shows us all the time how resilient she is, and gratitude for her beauty and our mindful stewardship of her. I give thanks for all of those who are in service, all of those practitioners and healers and light workers who are in service for a world that truly works for all people, and for the youth of the world, blessing all beings, all creatures, all people everywhere. I know that there is love and comfort and healing, and for all of those who are dealing with challenges of any form, and I say their names aloud: Barbara Gordon and Bruce, Rita Cotton, all people who are impacted right now by COVID-19. I speak a word for Lauren and Joanne and her family. And we hold Sandra, the sister of Barbara Gordon, in our hearts as she has made her transition into the greatest of her yet to be. And anyone who has a prayer in their heart this day, anyone who submitted a prayer request online or to our practitioners, we hold you in love and light and wholeness and healing. And if you want, you may say to yourself or aloud, anyone that you might want a little extra prayer today, say their names aloud.